So, all things good and bad must eventually come to an end. All of your favorite stories, all of your favorite TV shows, even your favorite video essay series about your favorite TV shows, will all inevitably reach their final chapter. And for The Wire and for this retrospective series on The Wire, it seems like we have finally reached that point. Season 5 is the grand finale of the critically acclaimed and forever relevant HBO series The Wire, and it originally aired in January of 2008. A lot had changed in the world from the time of the show's inception back in 2002 all the way to its final episode in March of 2008. Websites like YouTube, MySpace, Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, iTunes, Netflix, they all revolutionized the social media industry, along with technological inventions like smartphones, HD televisions, and of course, whatever that was that made T-Pain's voice go,
"Freak Nick's gonna need that brain if he's ever gonna make it rain."
This all resulted in a much different world than the one that The Wire started in, but funnily enough, the world never changed where it mattered, at least in relation to the major themes of the show. Corruption, poverty, violence, crime, and incompetence were all still rampant within the American government and in pretty much every major societal system. And the solutions to these problems were still nowhere to be found. The system was broken long before The Wire was created. That's why The Wire was created. And by the time the show ended, the system was still just as broken. But at least now, we could post about it on social media while we watched a funny video of a dog riding a skateboard and downloaded the newest Kanye West album onto our iPod mini. And shout out to all the soldiers of the struggle who were walking around the mid-2000s with a goddamn iPod shuffle in their pocket. Times were tough, but you were tougher. Honestly, I'm not sure what to say about season 5 of The Wire. It's the final season of one of the best shows I've ever seen, but in a lot of ways, it doesn't feel like it lives up to the occasion. For one, it's the shortest season of the show with only 10 episodes to the other season's 12 to 13. And where the other seasons focused heavily on dissecting a specific aspect of American city culture, whether it be drugs, the working class, the cops, the school systems, etc., this season didn't really focus on any specific topic with that same level of depth as its predecessors. I mean, there is that whole Baltimore Sun storyline focusing on the death of the newspaper, but I feel pretty confident that I'm not alone when I say, I don't give a about newspapers.
We don't care.
Let me tell you something.
We don't care.
We do not care.
Don't care, don't care, don't care, still don't care. I don't care.
And even if I and all the other people like me who found this storyline pretty underwhelming did care about newspapers, I still feel like this is one of the only times in this show where they didn't do a great job of creating an interesting and captivating deep dive on a specific industry or system. The Sabaka storyline from season 2 is something that I'm going to remember forever. Watching Frank Sabaka try to save his family, his life, and the working class of Baltimore, only to push too hard and end up digging his own grave, was shockingly impactful. Season 4's depiction of the Baltimore school system was so well done and so powerful that it made that season the best of the show, according to me and many other people's opinions. And then of course the classic cops versus drug dealer story focus of the first season and the third season are at the very core of the show. But this Baltimore Sun storyline, it just didn't really move me. It's just kinda whatever. It feels more like a vehicle for the ridiculous shenanigans that McNulty gets into on the cop side of things, rather than its own important story. But anyway, the big to-do with the Baltimore Sun plotline is how they're chasing the story of the very not real homeless serial killer who's been tearing their way through Baltimore. But again, not really, because McNulty made this whole thing up.
There's a serial killer in Baltimore. He preys on the weakest among us. He needs to be caught.
The majority of this storyline is told through a man named Gus, who is the editor of the Baltimore Sun, and it's all about his growing suspicions that one of his reporters, named Scott, is faking information for all of his stories to make them seem better and more exciting than they really are. Throughout the season, Gus grows more and more suspicious of Scott because Scott's lies become more and more unbelievable and grandiose. This eventually reaches a boiling point where Gus finally calls Scott out on this by the end of the season, but the higher-ups at the paper simply don't care that Scott might be faking stories because they know that the Baltimore Sun, as well as newspapers in general, are doomed. And them working with Scott and getting him a Pulitzer for his fake-ass stories is their best way of making it out of this dying industry.
It's a bad time for newspapers, as you all know. The news hole is shrinking as advertising dollars continue to decline. Technology is driving distribution, and the internet is a free source of news and opinions. We're now faced with hard choices. There will be a fresh round of buyouts.
This whole storyline is actually very reminiscent of the dock workers storyline from season 2. Just, the color of the workers' collars are a little bit different. But it also speaks to another problem that has definitely become a major issue in 2026. The amount of information that we receive daily from the internet, our televisions, and our phones, it's just too much for us to fully process and discern what is real and what isn't. Nowadays, misinformation is mixed with real information so frequently and flippantly that it's become almost impossible to tell the difference between the two. And many people have stopped caring about what is real and what isn't altogether. And this whole thing isn't a major theme of the season or the show as a whole, but it is interesting to see this topic be brought up almost 20 years before it really became a frightening reality for us today. Ironically, I think that this season would have been better served actually focusing on the homelessness epidemic rather than a news outlet trying to exploit the homeless. The news industry and the death of journalistic integrity is a very important issue, I want to make that clear. But homelessness just feels more in line with The Wire's major themes and aesthetic, Please tell me in the comments what you thought about the Baltimore Sun storyline. I get the feeling that most people agree with me that this was kind of the show's weakest attempt at these deep dives, but I don't know, maybe I'm off base.
Scott, there were hundreds of homeless down there tonight. People who voluntarily attended this event, and I'm gonna guess that any number of them would have let you put their names in the paper. But her story is great. Look at that quote. It's a perfect quote, best quote I could ever ask for. And that's my concern at this point.
But yeah, with all that being said, season 5, all in all, is probably my least favorite season of the show. The newspaper storyline is my least favorite deep dive. Scott is probably in the same tier as Cheese, Ziggy, and Naaman's mother when it comes to the absolute worst characters in the show. And the whole serial killer storyline feels like the most ridiculous and hard to believe in the series. Oh, and then there's the theme song, which I know you guys aren't going to agree with me on this, but I kinda like the season 5 theme song.
He's got the fire and the fury at his command, where you don't have to worry if you hold on to Jesus' hand.
Does it have the same soul and grit as most of the other theme songs? No, but that lead guitar riff is pretty fucking smooth, if not a little bit simple. And the fact that Bubble's sponsor Waylon is the lead vocalist on this song is just cool enough of a fun fact for me to confidently say that I actually enjoy this theme song more than season 1's theme.
Well, why you booing me? I'm right.
But enough about theme songs. Let's talk about what season 5 of The Wire is really all about. The running theme of this season is explained in the opening scene where Bunk and some of the other homicide detectives are working over a couple of young suspects in a murder case. And they pull out a bunch of very ridiculous tricks to get a confession.
Did you and Monel shoot your boy Pookie down on Carey Street just like Monel said you did?
Nah, no.
Lie. Lying motherfucker.
Machine is never wrong, son.
Now, while all of this is very funny, it does also set up Bunk's final line, which will encapsulate this season very well.
Bigger the lie, the more they believe.
Season 5 is all about people telling lies in order to get the results that they want. These vary from lies that we tell other people to the lies that we tell ourselves. Some of the characters in the season lie for selfish reasons. Some of them lie for the betterment of others. But regardless of the reason for the lie, lies are lies, and lying rarely ever stops with just the first lie. One of the first sayings I ever remember learning as a kid was that the ends justify the means. As long as the result of a decision or action is good, whatever was done to cause that good result was justified. This is obviously very dangerous rhetoric that has been the impetus for many of the most horrific atrocities ever committed by humanity, but there are instances where I can understand it. White lies that parents tell to children, governments tell their citizens, or, when you have like a rapper friend who makes the most generic SoundCloud perk junkie ass music ever, but when they play you their new single and ask you what you think, you just reply with fire emojis, knowing deep down that it actually deserves nothing but pure poop emojis. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about. But I think the biggest lie that's told in the final season of The Wire is that there is a serial killer on the loose in Baltimore who is targeting the homeless. This lie was created by everyone's favorite drunken Irish cop, James McNulty, and it was kept alive by everyone's favorite crime-solving android computer man, Lester Freeman. Why did they create this incredibly crazy and extremely dangerous lie? Well, because as I have said several times throughout this retrospective series, the system is broken. And at this point in the show, that broken system has started to break the city. Well, I guess more so than it already was broken. In season 4, when Carcetti became the mayor of Baltimore, he found out that the school system was over $50 million in debt.
$50 million?
And even though he had a chance to pay off that debt if he licked the boot of a Republican in Annapolis, he chose pride instead and basically condemned Baltimore's school districts and the children within them to the cruel fate that we saw the boys of season 4 suffer. He also basically screwed the city out of any real budget for anything other than fixing the schools, so in season 5, all the cops stopped getting paid for overtime and they stopped getting good equipment and resources for when they're out on patrol.
We're still authorizing overtime and the state's attorneys are still signing court slips.
You ain't fucking paying us.
Word coming down is that when the city's budget situation is improved, we'll all see that as back pay or comp time. Every last hour.
Pay my ass.
This causes morale within the police department to drop to an all-time low, and multiple secondary units are disbanded due to this lack of funding. Most importantly, Lester's major crime unit, which had been a year into an investigation on Marlo Stanfield, is disbanded pretty early into the season. McNulty starts to lose hope in things ever getting fixed, so he does what a drunken Irishman does best, and he starts to hit the booze, just like the old days. This predictably leads to McNulty becoming, yet again, a belligerent alcoholic who was a danger to himself and all those around him. There really was something nice about seeing McNulty happy and sober in season 4, and I had hoped that this kind of behavior would continue throughout the rest of the series. But silly me, I forgot what show I was watching. Nobody can truly be happy in The Wire. Every character either has a life they hate or a life they hate but have learned to live with. But yeah, McNulty is back on the sauce, probably worse than ever, and this leads him to come up with his craziest plan yet.
All of these, homeless murders from the last 5 years. Everything before that is on microfilm, but we got enough right here, Jimmy. Most of it open.
You're dumping murders on us that we can't solve. You're fucking the squad's clearance rate.
Fuck the fucking numbers already. The fucking numbers destroyed this fucking department.
Marlo ain't worth it, man. Nobody is.
Marlo's an asshole. He does not get to win. We get to win.
Basically, he starts faking crime scenes and old murders to make it look like there's a serial killer in Baltimore who is targeting the homeless, in hopes that it will garner the attention of the news and then become a top priority for the department and the city government. Once it becomes a top priority case, McNulty and Lester can get the funding they need to secretly go back to working the Marlo Stanfield case and finally bring him and his crew to justice. Somehow, and huge emphasis on somehow here, this plan eventually starts to work once Lester gets involved and makes some of his own genius tweaks to McNulty's formula. The Baltimore Sun starts running the story on the front page, which makes it a priority for Carcetti and his administration, and then Lester and McNulty end up getting all the resources they need to catch this fictitious killer, which of course mostly goes into allowing Lester to catch a real killer in Marlo Stanfield. We've gone over a few different moral conundrums throughout this series retrospective, but this one might actually take the cake. Is it okay to lie in order to get what you need to do something good? That's the most bare bones and simplistic way of putting it, but with the proper context, the question becomes a little harder to answer. When it comes to McNulty and stubborn-ass people of his ilk, they all have a habit of not thinking of the bigger picture when they don't get what they want. McNulty wants more money and resources for the police because he feels police work is important, and it is. But the school system is also important. Construction and waste collection are also very important in the city. Social programs for the less fortunate are also very important. There are several industries, services, and systems that must be maintained for a city to run efficiently, and the police are just one of those many systems. To create a lie that causes the city to give up a bunch of money they don't really have in the first place to the police just to catch one gang is incredibly short-sighted and irresponsible in the long run. And sure, it resulted in taking down Marlo's gang, but at what cost? Millions of dollars and man-hours were wasted on an investigation that never had a real perpetrator. People were in constant fear that they, or maybe homeless people that they knew, were in danger with nothing to ease them of their stress. And worst of all, by season's end, A copycat killer ends up killing 2 men because they were inspired by McNulty's fake serial killer.
I got nothing to do with this.
Oh, wonderful. We've eliminated one suspect.
Bosses are gonna toss it back to you, no doubt. Bosses know it's bullshit. What? Daniels knows, Perlman too. How the fuck you? How are you not in jail? I don't know. The lie's so big, people can't live with it, I guess. Jesus fucking Christ, Jimmy.
Those are 2 dead people that McNulty and Lester are arguably responsible for. I will say that what I like about all of this, though, is that none of this is lost on McNulty, who at first was extremely gung-ho and self-righteous about his twisted plan. But he gradually starts to realize the weight of his actions and just how poor of a decision it really was.
You said all we needed were some bugs, a camera or 2, and in a couple of weeks we'd have them. That's what you said. And you asked for surveillance teams. But before I could get to that, you came to me with this. I mean, what the fuck? I gotta tell you, Lester, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I can see why Daniels cringed every time you opened your fucking mouth. You're a supervisor's nightmare.
I'm just following the thread.
The ironic part is that Lester and McNulty were so careful to not let the bosses find out because they would obviously be in a crazy amount of trouble if they did. But by the time the bosses do find out, the lie has gotten so big and so many major players are implicated that if the lie were to be exposed, it wouldn't be just McNulty and Lester who go down, but it would be Daniels, Rhonda, Rawls, Carcetti. Everybody would go down for it. So instead of going to prison like they definitely should after they're exposed, Lester and McNulty instead get what in comparison is just a pretty soft slap on the wrist. No prison time, no exposing of their lies to the public, but they are never allowed to do real police work in Baltimore ever again. And funnily enough, it kind of reminds me of the ending to Full Metal Alchemist, where the only way for the protagonist Edward to get what he most desires is to give up the profession and passion that defines him as a person. Oh, sorry, I forgot. This isn't one of my anime videos, so you guys don't really give a shit about Full Metal Alchemist.
We don't care.
Let me tell you something.
We don't care.
We do not care.
Don't care, don't care, don't care, still don't care. I don't care.
Either way, it's a very good comparison, and Full Metal Alchemist and The Wire are both masterpieces that deserve to be remembered and studied for the rest of time. But yeah, Lester is forced to retire after 32 years of faithful service to the city, and McNulty, well, he basically also retires since he can't actually do police work anymore. They even give him that whole Irish pub eulogy that they did for all the other cops who died over the course of the show. But at the end of the day, this all is kind of a fitting end for McNulty's character arc. He said himself earlier in the show that if he's not working a case, he feels empty. And that's where the alcohol and self-destructive behavior comes in. But now that he has Beatty Russell, who, goddamn, I can't believe she really stuck around after all this.
Why do you hoes act like if you ain't in no relationship, you gon' die? Y'all be weak in the knees. Stand up! Stand up!
And now that he's also had his ego crushed and he's been humbled by this whole fake serial killer experience, he seems to be in a much better place. A place where he doesn't need to work a case to be a functioning and well-behaved member of society. And you know what? That actually is a pretty good ending for our main protagonist. Or at the very least, it's the best ending a self-destructive fuck-up like James McNulty could hope for in a show like The Wire.
Because you lying motherfucker. You're as full of shit as I am. Trapped in the same lie. Only difference is I know why I did it. Fuck if I can figure out what it gets you in the end. You're not serious. You No. No, I'm a fucking joke. And so are you.
Wow, man. That kind of made me hopeful. You know, like maybe everything will be okay with this show and the city and everything else. Let's see how some of the other characters on the other side of the law ended up.
Let me get one of them too.
How my hair look, man?
You look good, girl.
Joe, relax.
Now that's the type of shit I'm used to seeing from this show.
I'm not going to be able to psychologize all of them on the corner. Some of them going to sleep. For God!
Yeah, a lot of the cops end up getting pretty solid endings in this show, but for most of the criminals, they ended up either dead, in jail, or something else also bad. One thing I do really like about season 5 is that there are a lot of returning cameos throughout the season. Like, I love how they brought Avon back and had him actually meet up with Marlo behind bars, and just to see their conversation and how similar they really are, being both from the West Side, and how that's a huge factor in why Avon is kind of cool with the whole thing of him being usurped by Marlo.
I mean, you a natural businessman, right? West Side definitely need to stick together, you know what I mean? And all the fuss about you coming at me, I say let bygones be bygones, but fuck all them East Side bitches.
We also got this guy from season 1. You know, he's back, he's still alive, still working, I guess. Who else? Oh yeah, we got this guy from the docks in season 2 who is now living with the homeless, confirming Frank Sabaka's nightmare that the docks being bought out would lead to his guys suffering. And speaking of the docks and the Sabakas, we even get a funny yet kinda sad cameo from Nikki Sabaka and some of the other dock workers from season 2 protesting the unveiling of the new condominium that's opening right where Uncle Frank's port used to be.
Fuck you! Greedhead motherfucker! Fuck you for tearing down the port of Baltimore and selling it to some yuppie assholes from Washington! All right.
Who the hell's that?
And oh look, it's Vito from season 1.
No way, yo.
And there goes Savino from season 1. And on another note, we also get this gut-wrenching update on Randy from season 4 when Bunk goes to visit him at the group home. Due to all the cutbacks, Bunk is the only detective working the 22 dead bodies case from season 4. Basically the vacant home murders that Chris and Snoop did last season. So Bunk is visiting Randy a year after the events of season 4 so that he can try to convince Randy to give him a little bit more information about Lex's murder. And I've said this before and I will say this again, Bunk is one of my favorite characters in this show, and he is rarely ever in the wrong and he rarely fucks up. But the way he tried to intimidate Randy into snitching after everything that Randy went through last season was easily Bunk's worst moment in the series for me.
If you know something about that boy Lex getting shot, now is your last chance to speak to that. You gave a statement last year.
Why don't you promise to get me out of here? That's what y'all doing, ain't it? Lie to dumbass niggas. Yo, y'all need to get this police out my face before I bank his ass.
But it's little details like these that are great to see in season 5 and actually do serve to make the season feel like a nice send-off to the series in certain aspects. It's yet again showing us one of the show's most prevalent and important themes, that all the pieces really do matter, and all these pieces continue to play their own parts outside of everything we see on screen.
When I gave you that kid to debrief last year, what's his face? You were supposed to get him to bunk Moreland, you remember that? Yeah, I fucked up. So what? So it mattered. It all matters. I know we thought it didn't, but it does.
But it's the 4 criminals we just saw get their muffin caps peeled back who carry the brunt of that side of the story in season 5.
What you see in this old man? All the money you got? Your great-grandfather. First colored man to own his own house in Johnson Square. That means something. Something you youngins lost.
Yeah, well, we outside when you're ready.
Season 5 starts with Marlo wanting to finally get revenge on Omar for how he robbed him earlier in the series. But because Omar is living La Vida Loca outside the States after his big score from season 4, Marlo instructs Chris and Snoop to start taking out the people close to Omar in hopes of Omar finding out and wanting to fly back to Baltimore for revenge. They end up killing Butchie, and once word gets back to Omar about this, he predictably breaks his word to Bunk about never killing in Baltimore again, and goes on a Kill Bill-esque hunt for Marlo and his people.
Said, tell Omar he put his hand in the wrong pocket.
And you need to know, Marlo dogs didn't let Butchie go easy.
I'ma work them. Sweet Jesus, I'ma work them.
Unfortunately for Omar though, this journey of vengeance doesn't go nearly as well as Uma Thurman's did. About halfway through the season, he eventually gets into a crazy shootout with Chris, Michael, and Snoop, which ends with him jumping out of a 3-story window to evade Marlo's crew. He somehow, huge emphasis on somehow, succeeds in giving them the slip after this, but he also ends up permanently hobbled from this experience.
Don't seem possible. Don't. Some Spider-Man shit there.
Still though, even with one bum leg and no professional medical treatment, Omar still manages to hit several of Marlo's stashes around the city and tells every member of Marlo's crew that he can find that Marlo is a bitch-ass, hoe-ass, mark-ass, puss-ass, suck-ass loser who's too chicken to meet Omar in the street to handle business like a fucking man. I'm paraphrasing slightly, but you get the point. Omar does this all season long until he robs Michael's corner, and little Kennard, who you may remember Michael beating the ever-loving shit out of last season, happens to be there while Omar robbed the stash. For his whole life, Kennard was told about this mythical figure Omar Little, who struck fear into the hearts of the most dangerous, battle-tested thugs in the city. And here he was, finally in front of Kennard, a broken and hobbled sham of a man barely able to make his way down the block. So Kennard does what any right-minded young boy would do. He tracks Omar down in a corner store and blows his brains out. Man. Was it always just that easy? How did nobody do that before? That you could just do that? That's crazy. This show makes it feel like people just never get shot in broad daylight. But apparently, you can just do that.
This is bullshit.
After Omar dies, there's a very interesting scene where his corpse is mislabeled by one of the coroners where his body is being kept. And it's only caught by a black coroner who figures out that there's no way that this old white man is actually named Omar Little, and clearly it must be this black man next to him that should be Omar. I've seen a few different interpretations of this scene, but for me, this scene is showing that everything Omar did in the streets made him a legend in the streets. But that's the only place where that really mattered. In the rest of the world, he was just another black male statistic, and the fact that he almost gets misnamed in death and confused for a completely different person speaks to just how irrelevant he was in the grand scheme of everything. But Omar was far from irrelevant in the world that he chose to inhabit. Omar could have gotten out of the game anytime he wanted, but a large part of him really did love that lifestyle, and who could blame him? I mean, he was damn good at what he did. But the same way the streets will never love the dealers, it will never love the outlaws either. None of this shit lasts forever, and you're lucky if it even lasts long. No matter how feared, respected, or dangerous Omar was, all it took was one shot from one little kid to end everything, proving that no man is truly untouchable, and we're all much more vulnerable and weak than we may like to believe.
You working a Stanfield corner, which means you working for a straight-up punk. You feel me? I'm out here in these streets every day. Me and my Losa. Where he at? Huh? Yo, y'all put it in his ear. Marlo Stanfield is not a man for this town. You dig?
But we also can't forget about good old Prop Joe and how, shockingly, it was his own foolish naivete that led to his demise. Because why in the fuck did this man trust Marlo goddamn Stanfield with all of his industry knowledge, connections, and trade secrets? Prop Joe basically takes Marlo under his wing and tries to show him the ropes of how to go to the next level with this drug kingpin shit. He teaches him how to clean his money, he introduces him to the Greeks, he brings him into the co-op and starts helping Marlo with all of his problems. And the whole time, he never notices that Marlo is using him to learn all of this very important information while also plotting Prop Joe's downfall from behind his back. This all culminates in Marlo flipping Prop Joe's nephew Cheese to his side and using Cheese to set Prop Joe up to be assassinated in his own home by Chris.
My nephew. Boy was always a disappointment. But I treated you like a son.
I wasn't made to play the son.
In a weird way, Prop Joe's death reminds me a lot of another character from a completely different series, but with a very similar name, Joel from The Last of Us. See, both Joel and Joe played their respective games the right way, and that's what allowed them to survive in environments that most people wouldn't last a week in. They didn't trust anyone without good reason. They were willing to lie, cheat, and steal in order to protect themselves and what they cared about, and they didn't hand out free charity. That is, until one day, they just did the opposite of everything I just said. And whether it was Joel helping Abby in the woods and giving her his name, or Joe trying to mentor and tame an untamable demon in Marlo Stanfield, these random and uncharacteristic acts of kindness ended up being both of their undoings. And what about Cheese, Prop Joe's traitorous nephew? It was pretty clear even early on in the series that Cheese was a burden and a liability to Prop Joe, and his idiocy and hot-headed attitude was eventually going to get him killed or Prop Joe killed. Turns out, it got both of them killed. At the very end of the series, after Prop Joe has been eliminated and Marlo was removed from the board, it seemed like Cheese, out of all the possible people, was about to come out on top and be the next man to wear the crown. And then, boom. He becomes another casualty to the game, courtesy of Slender Chuck. This final speech from Cheese and the prompt response from the tall man right after are super important to one of the overall themes of the show.
Because Joe had his time, and Omar put an end to that. Then Marlo had his time, short as it was, and the police put an end to that. And now, motherfucker, it's our time, mine's and yours. You gonna stand there crying that back in the day shit. Jeez. There ain't no back in the day, nigga. There's just the street and the game and what happened here today.
See, in a weird way, Cheese is kind of in the right here. Not that he's right about betraying his uncle and generally being a complete piece of shit, but what he says about the old days being dead and it being time for a change and new blood. That is what happens in all industries and systems after a certain amount of time. The old guard has their day in the sun, and then they are usually unceremoniously usurped by the next generation. The thing is, and this is why I really grew to love Slim Charles in this show, Slim Charles is part of that old generation, and despite his very convenient ability to adapt to changing times, he still yearns for the old days the same way that Joe did, the same way that Bodie did, the same way that all of House Barksdale did. And so he kills Cheese for Joe, but not just for Joe, but what Joe and all the people of Joe's generation represented. This is the same fight that Frank fought for on the waterfront. This is the same fight that Bunny Colvin and Daniels fought for in their world of law enforcement. It's a fight for those who are being left behind by changing times, and a fight for the way that things should be done, at least according to the old ways. But unlike Daniels, Bunny, and Frank, Slim Charles is the only one of them who wins this fight. And he won by playing his role and biding his time until he found the perfect moment to strike and take back what was being taken over by the younger generation.
Yeah, but how Slim feel about that though? How you feel, tall man? Really pioneer out there for us?
Nah, I'm good where I am.
Anybody got a problem from here on out? Bring it to me or sit on that shit. One more thing. Price of the brick going up. 30 more. All right, enough of this shit.
So we know the fates of Slim Charles, Cheese, Prop Joe, Omar, and everyone else caught up in Marlo's twisted web. But what about the man himself? He spends most of his time in season 5 plotting. He starts the season plotting on how to take out Omar, and he continues the season plotting on how to take out Prop Joe. And once the cops finally take him down and arrest him, he plots on what he's going to do once he gets out of prison. I do like Marlo as a character, but my biggest issue with him is that he's a bit of a Mary Sue. And I don't know what the male equivalent of that term is, but whatever it is, Marlo fits it pretty well, in my opinion. He just seems to get away with things that nobody should be able to. Even Avon, when he was running the game, was getting shot at and almost taken by the cops multiple times. He and Stringer had to be extremely careful with every move they made to avoid any unnecessary contact with the police or their enemies. Well, except for that annual basketball game with the East Side, but that's different. But Marlo just seems to always get away with every mistake and every encounter with an opponent. He gets little to no pushback from any of the other characters in the show, despite him being genuinely one of the most disrespectful, dismissive, and aggressively blunt characters. And I get it, that's what he's supposed to represent, the whole more aggressive and violent generation of street kids that took over after Avon and Prop Joe's generation. But even if he is a realistic depiction of those new street punks, it might just be a situation of the truth being stranger than fiction, because to me, it seems like Marlo should have been taken out a long time before season 5, probably before season 3. I don't understand how he got as high as he did, being as confrontational and divisive as he was. But regardless of how I feel about this character getting away with too much, he does get away with pretty much everything that he does, and he eventually gets what he always wanted, which is, of course, the crown. Because we never get a real backstory on Marlo, It's hard for me to understand the type of person Marlo was until he got locked up near the end of the season, and we got this scene of him finding out that Omar had been trashing his name in the streets for weeks until he got killed.
You call me a punk? It was bullshit, man. You ain't need that on your mind. What the fuck you know about what I need on my mind, motherfucker? My name was on the street. And we bounce from this shit here, I'm gonna go down in them corners, let them people know. Word did not get back to me. Let them know Marlo stepped to any motherfucker, Omar, Barksdale, whoever. My name is my name.
This made me realize that Marlo was not driven by survival or money or anything that you would expect the average person to be motivated by. Marlo only wanted the power and the recognition of being top dog, even if that status didn't last. He just wanted to be the guy that people feared and respected. He was driven purely by pride and ego, and he didn't care about anything else. And that sociopathic mentality is why he was able to achieve everything he did. But in this pursuit of his ultimate goal, he ends up losing everything almost as fast as he got it when the cops finally arrest him and his right-hand man, Chris. Snoop ends up being killed by Michael when he catches on to the fact that she is trying to kill him because Marlo's crew thinks that he snitched, which is a running theme with Marlo's crew. But at the end of the day, Marlo is a monster. Whether made by the streets or just made perfectly for the streets, it's clear that he cannot exist anywhere else but the streets.
I'm done with this gangster shit. I've been there, done that.
You're something else other than a gangster.
Businessman. Yeah, so man, I can't get that shit wrapped around my head neither.
And this is proven when Marlo is miraculously able to get out of his sentence due to the highly illegal manner in which Lester and McNulty gathered their evidence against him. Marlo tries to go the Stringer Bell route with the assistance of Maury Levy, transitioning from the streets to the business world. This transition lasts about as long as a one-night stand with a lot lizard, as he quickly leaves Levy's party halfway through and instead decides to pick a fight with some random corner boys just to feel the rush of the streets again.
So you know who I am?
Nigga, you know who I am?
His name is his name. He is who he is. You can take the man out of the streets, but you can't take the streets out of the man. And no matter how much you may try, you cannot change a tiger's stripes. Whichever cliche you want to go with, Marlo Stanfield is the epitome of all of them. And he remained that way from the first time that he was introduced all the way to his final scene of the show. But one man who was never needed to run the streets because he was so good at running the other side of things was Clay Davis.
You can tell all of them, Royce, the caucus, all them grasping bitches who we put in every city department. You tell every last one that I do not fall alone.
Clay.
Think I'm gonna be the scapegoat for the whole damn machine? Shit.
The Wire gave us a lot of great villains throughout the show. Marlo, Chris and Snoop, Stringer Bell, Maury Levy, the Greeks, Rawls and Burrell, Prop Joe, the list goes on and on. But in my opinion, the greatest villain in the series is none other than Clay Davis. He's the only villain who is able to do his dirt pretty much right out in the open and in the face of the people he was actively backstabbing and playing for suckers, and yet he never had to pay the price for his actions. He stole from everybody. He stole from politicians, he stole from lobbyists, he stole from businesses, from gangsters, from his own constituents. Everyone who knew him knew that he was a two-timing crook, but no one could do anything to stop him. In season 5 though, this is the closest he ever comes to actually having to suffer the consequences of his evil deeds. Lester is finally able to indict him for all of the money laundering and thieving that he's done throughout his career. Lester has so much information, in fact, that if the case were to go federal, and he was judged by a federal jury, Clay Davis wouldn't have a chance in hell of talking his way out of a prison sentence. But unfortunately, due to the state's attorney Rupert Bonds wanting to keep this case civil so that he can use it as a springboard to run for mayor, the case never goes federal. So Clay Davis is able to be judged by a jury of his own peers. And what ensues after this is one of the greatest examples of a cult of personality that you will ever see.
And excuse me if I didn't ask that old arthritis woman for a receipt. Or that young mother needed to Similac to sign a damn piece of paper so I don't have to be up here in this box right now explaining to folks who never been in our neck of the woods how things truly are. And if a jury of my peers, you all, deem it right and true for me to walk out of here in upright and justified manner, oh, I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm gonna do the same damn thing tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that, until they got me laid out at Marge's funeral home and trucked me off to Mount Auburn.
No, he's fucking good.
That motherfucker don't miss, man.
He's good.
In the heat of battle, he don't miss.
No.
In the heat of controversy, he don't miss.
No.
Being able to spin lies and half-truths into unwavering support and belief in your target. Deflecting all credible attacks on your record or character as fake news from jealous outsiders who don't understand things like you do. That is Con Man for Dummies 101, and Clay Davis is a clear master of it. In politics, it's better to be a good con man than a good politician. You don't have to know what you're talking about. You just have to sound like you know what you're talking about. And you have to inspire confidence in the people that you're speaking to so that they believe in you. That's what being a con or a confidence man is all about. So while the villains of the streets might suffer at the end of this show, the villains in Congress, in politics, and the corporate world, they seem to be the ones who come out the best in all of this. Which again, is pretty comparable to real life.
Despite all the false accusations made against me, the people who I continue to serve have spoken.
What the fuck just happened?
Whatever it was, they don't teach it in law school.
The rest of season 5 is all about wrapping things up for our main characters. And it might seem like I hate the season 1 intro because of everything I've said about it in this retrospective series, but I do think it's a solid theme song, and I really love how the show reveals the fates of all of these characters as that same season 1 theme plays over it one last time. Seriously, this is a really nice touch. But we see that Kima and Bunk are now partners in homicide, while Sydnor, who I don't think I've ever really talked about in this retrospective series, but was always a solid character, is now kind of like the Freeman/McNulty of the group. This is clear because he's talking to the same judge that McNulty was in season 1, and it seems to be a very similar type of vibe to the conversation. Slim Charles has taken on the responsibility of dealing with the Greeks, showing that he's pretty much the one with the crown at the end of the season in the streets. Carcetti goes all the way up to being governor of Maryland. Rhonda Perlman becomes a judge, while Daniels became a lawyer after he resigned from the position as commissioner at the end of the season. He did this because he was asked to juke the stacks for Carcetti, which he was previously promised by Carcetti would never happen, and then his bitch of an ex-wife convinces him to step down because if they finally expose him for all the dirt that he did back in his Eastern District days, she could be affected too. This leaves a vacancy for the police commissioner spot since Rawls gets moved up with Carcetti, and Burrell got pushed out earlier in the season for Daniels. So out of all the people in this show, Stan goddamn Valchek becomes the new police commissioner. His whole career, they just called him a stupid Polak, but now he's the one running the show. Very Slim Charles-esque, if you ask me. We also see that Michael and Dookie unfortunately have to go their separate ways after Michael kills Snoop and becomes too hot for Dookie and his little brother Boog to stay around. So Michael sends Boog to live with his aunt, and Dookie is left to wander the streets, and he takes refuge with a drug addict who sells junk metal for a living. I mean, as if their fates in season 4 weren't sad enough, right? One of the most heartbreaking moments of the show is when Dookie and Michael are having their final conversation, and Dookie is reminiscing about the big brawl that they had with the Terrace Boys in the first episode of season 4, and he asks Michael if he remembers any of it.
I took a beat down from them boys. I don't even throw a shadow on it. That was the day y'all bought me ice cream off the truck. Remember, Mike?
Don't.
He's too far gone and too removed from his childhood innocence to remember the days before he started working for Marlo and before he started killing people. After they go their separate ways, Michael basically becomes the new Omar and spends his days robbing drug dealers and other gangsters as a means to get by. With Naaman somehow giving sociology lectures and Randy stuck in the group homes, it really is crazy to see just how different all of the fates of these boys was after season 4. But that's pretty much everyone accounted for. Everyone except Bubbles.
Talking about what you do
what you think, what you feel.
I don't feel nothing.
That was never your problem. Not even as a low-bottom dope fiend, that was never the problem. It'd be a fucking shame to make it the problem now.
Within Bubbles' storyline is probably the most important lesson to take from this very dark, depressing, and sometimes hopeless show. Bubbles was an addict in pretty much every season of The Wire. He tried to get clean or slow down on a couple of occasions, but he always ended up falling back into his nasty habit of addiction and debauchery. That is, until he hit his rock bottom near the end of season 4, where his negligence, addiction, and thirst for vengeance ended up getting a young kid named Sherrod that he was trying to mentor killed. And anyone who's watched the show knows that this was a running theme with Bubbles. Even at his worst, when he finds people in need of guidance, whether they be fellow addicts, young kids, the police, criminals, or just strangers in passing, Bubbles always did his best to help others despite not even being able to help himself. Bubbles lost his normal life and family to addiction. Bubbles lost Johnny to addiction. Bubbles lost Sherrod to addiction. Bubbles lost everything that he had to addiction. But he never lost his warm heart, and he never lost his drive to help other people. So when he finally did hit this rock bottom moment in season 4, we see in season 5 that Bubbles has finally found a way to quit drugs and stay sober for over a year now. In season 5, he's back living with his sister. He's also working at soup kitchens and different odd jobs around the city. But most importantly, he's going to meetings with fellow addicts and giving testimonials about how he's been able to stay sober. But despite all of this progress that he's made in such a short amount of time, the one thing that Bubbles still hasn't been able to talk about in these meetings is Sherrod's death. I said earlier that season 5 of The Wire is about the lies people tell, both to others and to themselves. Bubbles' lie is that he wants to convince himself that he doesn't deserve to be sober, he doesn't deserve happiness, and he doesn't deserve to be alive after everything that he had done while he was still using drugs. The scene of Bubbles being tested for HIV with Wayland is one of the things that really speaks to this.
Negative means?
You know what it means? All the shit I done, all the works I shared. My best boy years back, I fight off the same hype as him dozens of times. He had the bug for sure. That shit ain't right no how, man.
This ain't about the bug, is it? This is you trying to make the past be everything, mean everything. Sorry, Bubs. Shame ain't worth as much as you think.
Survivor's guilt is a very real thing that people who manage to overcome extreme hardships or situations tend to develop. It can be a very dangerous mentality that often leads addicts to relapse, but Bubbles is able to stay clean throughout this whole season, no matter how much he still blames himself for the tragic deaths of those he tried to help. Eventually, Bubbles is convinced by Wayland to give one more speech at the program meeting and finally talk about Sherrod. And this speech that Bubbles gives might genuinely be the most powerful monologue in the entire series.
But Sherrod is more of a hurt. But not so bad like it was. Ain't no shame in holding on to grief. As long as you make room for other things too.
The Wire is an incredibly bleak and nihilistic series that can make the viewer feel like the issues it depicts will never really be solved. But Bubbles' entire character stands as one of the show's very few testaments to the opposite. Bubbles was the lowest of the low for the first 4 seasons of this show. He was a homeless junkie with nothing to his name but the clothes on his back. He was the kind of person society looks down on, steps over, or even just straight up ignores. He was what many people would call irredeemable, a lost cause who was always going to be a low-life drug addict. But that was never all Bubbles was, and that wasn't what Bubbles remained. He realized his flaws and his mistakes. He grew to understand what he needed to change about himself, and he made those changes to be a better man and be somebody the world could respect and admire. Bubbles' new life may not be easy or glamorous, but it's honest, it's well-meaning, and it makes Bubbles and the people around him happy. It's a life none of us are guaranteed, but it's a life all of us could attain if we are willing to work for it. In my opinion, he is what we all should strive to be like, and he is also what we should all strive to be able to see in other people. The human spirit is much more resilient than it might seem on the surface, and the capacity for good within us is much bigger than this world might deceive you into believing. The outlook for the world was pretty bleak in the 2000s, and honestly, it might be even bleaker now. But Bubbles represents the idea that the issues we face might be overwhelming, but they are not insurmountable. And the best way to resolve these issues isn't to lie, cheat, and steal our way around them, The best way to resolve the issues of this country and the issues within ourselves is to simply be better people. Be better to each other and be better to ourselves. There are so many reasons for why I believe that The Wire is the most important show ever made. But one of the biggest is because it shows us what the world looks like when we aren't good people, when we are selfish, prideful, and greedy. But it also shows us what kind of meaningful and powerful changes we can make when we stop living for ourselves and start living for one another instead. In a lot of respects, the world is an overcomplicated and crazy mess. But to fix that mess, the answer really is that simple. We just need to be better people.
Let's go home.
Oh, man. It is crazy to think that 6 months of working on this series is over. This is the last season. This is the last video. I put so much time and effort over these last 6 months, pretty much since the start of the year in January, into doing this series. And like I said, it's weird to just say like it's over now. Like I got to move on to something else, and not constantly be watching The Wire and editing Wire videos and things like that. But no, I just wanted to leave this outro here to say thank you to everyone who's watched and supported this series from the start, or even if you just came along, if this is the first video you watched. Thank you to everyone who has watched, commented, shared, supported, everything. It means the world to me every time. Every time I'm always, shocked by the positive reaction to these videos I make. And I never get tired of seeing it. It always brings a smile to my face that all this crazy amounts of work and effort that I put into these videos it means something to people who watch it. So like I said, thank you so much. And I mean, honestly, there's so much more that I could have talked about within these last 5 videos. As I've said in the videos, right, I had to cut stuff out that just didn't seem as important, but it's still obviously very important. All the pieces matter. And I definitely want to make more videos on The Wire going forward. They just won't be obviously these hour-long, 40 minutes to hour-long-ish videos, like deep dives. So just focus specifically on certain aspects. And I think it's also important to point out that, this is a fictional show, but it's a fictional show about a real city and real problems that city was facing. From what I've heard, Baltimore has come a long way since the 2000s, since the time of The Wire and before The Wire. From what I've heard just from news articles, news stories, from actual Baltimore residents who either were in the city, left the city, came back. The new, administration or regime, whatever you would say, like new mayor and everything. Apparently, they've done a pretty good job so far of cleaning up a lot of the issues that The Wire was all about with Baltimore. Like the crime, corruption. Baltimore was probably the most corrupt city in the country, and now apparently a lot of that has gone away. So that's also something I wanted to talk about and highlight at least once before this whole retrospective series ended. Just how it's cool to see, like I was saying at the end of this video, this outro, it was cool to see that things are getting better. Things aren't as hopeless, I guess, as the show might come off as a lot of the time. In the real world, the real Baltimore, Maryland seems to be healing. It took a long time, took long enough, but it seems like the right people are in power now, and things hopefully will continue to get better. It's so crazy that this is, like I said, one of the greatest shows of all time, and never got any awards that I know of. I don't think it ever won any Emmys, ever won any major awards. Apparently was at the threat or at the risk of being canceled every season. It was never a ratings darling. It was never something that HBO really thought would last or have an impact. And they just quietly churned out 5 of the best seasons of television ever. David Simon, the creator, all of the writers, head writers, producers, the actors, everybody just did an amazing job with this series. And like I said, I could talk about this forever. There's been countless videos made. There have been countless videos made. My voice is going. I've been talking about this show for so long, I can barely talk anymore. So hopefully if you enjoyed this retrospective series, you'll keep watching the other Wire videos I make. And then from there, I hope you all enjoy it. Like I said, I put a lot into this, and it means the world that a lot of people have reacted positively to it, even the negative people. I just like seeing people's opinions on the same art that I enjoy. But yeah, I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.